Okay, we're live.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the fourth meeting of uh, the National Black Feminist Book Club and our session selection of At the Dark End of the Street, Black Women, Rape, and Resistance, a new history of the civil rights movement from Rosa Parks to the rise of Black power by Danielle L. McGuire. I'll be moderator for tonight, and our topic will be Chapter 3, Walking in Pride and Dignity. So just to introduce myself, Georgette Moses. Currently in Columbia, South Carolina, and what drew me to the group was trying to find out in more detail the important events in history that involve women of color. Randy, would you like to introduce
Breaking
yourself?
up.
Can you hear me?
I can't hear Georgette. Everyone's breaking up.
I
I
can
don't
hear.
hear it at all.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a
Randy,
little.
yeah, maybe it's my.
Randy.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, you want to introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, my name is Randy Henderson. I am an intern and member of Black Women's Blueprint, and I am working remotely from Atlanta, Georgia. What drew me to the book club was one, I had never heard of the book, and I love book clubs, and I haven't been able to read leisurely or books that I really want to read since I've been in school. So it's been a nice break from the academics to into something I actually am interested in.
Thank you. That's
Okay.
very. And
Okay.
Benita?
Vanita,
I'm breaking
can
up.
you hear me?
Yeah, it's very difficult to hear people tonight.
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble too.
You're
I
freezing
don't
up. Everything is
know.
freezing up. I only hear I probably heard four words that Georgette said. I didn't hear a lot of anyone really. It's just I don't know what the problem is.
I don't either. But Georgette was asking you to introduce yourself.
Okay, I did hear part of Randy's, just a little.
Okay.
It's all said.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Good evening. My name is Nina Walker. I was drawn to the book club, first of all, because my very close and dear friend Michelle asked me to join. And of course, Michelle's always interesting. And second, because I'm always interested in anything that has to do with our history. So I'm enjoying myself.
Excellent.
Okay. And my name is Michelle Odom. I am a member and on staff with Black Women's Blueprint here. It's a national organization, but we're headquartered in New York. I am currently at our offices in Brooklyn, and anyone who is in the neighborhood and wants to come down and join me, you're welcome to do so. I'll be here until 8 p.m. We're located at 279 Empire Boulevard in Brooklyn between Nostrand and Roger Avenues. Um, I am, along with Randy, am one of the founders of the book group, and I've been involved in a number of book groups, but nothing. I've been involved in online book groups, but nothing that had this video component. So I thought it might be a really fun way. I'm always trying to learn new things, try new things, and so for me, it was just a chance to do something different. And the book, At the Dark End of the Street, connects very closely to the work that Black Women's Blueprint does around ending rape culture and sexual violence and all of that kind of thing. Randy, I was hoping Farrah was going to be with us tonight. She is in the building, but she hasn't come to sit down yet. But she has made a commitment that she's going to get here sooner or later. So I guess we'll see her. Soon. So that's all I know, Georgette. Take it away.
Okay. So I've already mentioned the book title, and our reading dates will be on Tuesdays from June 3rd all the way to July 29th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. via Google Hangouts and YouTube. Now, getting into some of the key points of the highlights of the chapter. Would you ladies like to take turn reading them, and we just discuss them as we go, or?
Sure. Yeah. I'm thinking about what's going to not get us too far ahead in case Labib comes back at 7 o'clock. So maybe if we just do like one point and then stop to talk about that, we won't get too far ahead.
That sounds like a great idea. Let's do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Am I still coming in, Charlie?
Who wants to read?
I will if you like.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Benita?
Okay. Can't see a thing, of course, with the glasses.
Of course.
Claudette Colvin, a 10th grade grader at Booker T. Washington High School, is arrested, not for specifically defying the laws, but for speaking her mind. Studying about Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth, Black heroes and how they broke down Jim Crow laws, and articles about racial violence and discrimination galvanized her to speak up when the bus driver ordered her to give up her seat for a white passenger who was standing. She reminded them that the city law required passengers to move only if another seat was available. She had stumped the police officers and stunned the crowd. It was her righteous indignation when she told them, "I am just as good as any other white person that's seated." And that sealed her fate. Sorry, can't see with glasses.
It's all right. It's all right. These notes are online at the National Black Feminist Book Group. You can get a copy of them, and everybody can read along themselves. They're also on our Facebook event page. So, okay, Georgette.
Does anyone have a comment on a question about it?
Well, maybe let's look at your first question. Why do you think that after all the previous abuses that were common day-to-day life in Montgomery, this incident with Claudette Colvin galvanized the Black community to action?
Well, I think that it galvanized the Black community because she pointed out that what they were asking her wasn't part of the law. And I don't think anyone ever, I think, when you're being harassed by police officers and bus drivers that, you get really riled up, that you don't really sometimes stop to think about what it is they're asking you. But she was very provoked by her time at school and what they had learned that day. And so she was able to take a moment and realize this wasn't part of the law. And so when I think that provoked everybody to really take a step back and think about how white people during that time were making things laws off of whim and it didn't make sense.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess for me, everything has its boiling point or tipping point, and I think by the time they got to this stage, which was early in 1955, they had been putting up with abuse. The women, particularly, have been putting up with abuse on the buses for a long time. I mean, this was an era, and it's hard for me to imagine. And I read the buses and trains in New York City all the time. But bus drivers in that era down south carried guns. Maybe they still do now, but I mean, I hope the bus driver is not packing a piece. But there is a big sign that says, it's a federal law to offend a bus driver, assault a bus driver. But back in the 1940s, when this was set, the bus drivers were carrying guns and they were stopping the buses. If they told somebody to get up out of a seat and the person didn't move fast enough for them, they would stop the bus in the middle of the street, lock everybody in. Which I cannot imagine, and go off to find the cops. And and then come back and have a whole. They may smack you or anything. So people have been putting up with that kind of drama and trauma for decades, and enough is enough. So I think on that particular day, this young lady, emboldened by what she had studied in school that day, and was just, she'd had enough. So she said, I'm just as good as any white person. And I mean, we believe that now, and we say that now easily. But you had to really be somebody to say something like that in 1955 Montgomery. So I think they'd had enough. Vanita?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I definitely think they had enough. They just caught her on the wrong day, maybe a warm day. Nobody was feeling it. My girlfriend, I mean, let's face it. She learned some new things, and it sounds kind of like myself. And I probably would have been that person that would have done what she did on a day I just didn't feel like it. So yeah, and I admire her. I really do. To be that young, and to speak out, because we have a lot of people that are more mature that don't have the courage. So she had a lot of courage, and I really do think she was a girl after my heart. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Georgette, what did you think?
Yeah, I think she was a young heroine herself. Especially considering, after they'd arrested her, then the fear set in, after she was bold and she said what she had to say.
Right.
put her in the police car, then she, immediately she had to worry about being sexually assaulted or worse.
Right, right,
So
right.
for her to just, to take that stand for herself and really for everybody else the bus, was quite remarkable. I guess it just shows you that young people have a lot more guts than old folks.
Yeah, yeah. Then and now. That's for sure. It looks like we lost Rhea for a moment. I'm sure she'll be back. Um, yeah, can anybody else see her?
No, no.
Okay. Yeah, but also, with what struck me is whenever anybody asserts their equality, it seems to push somebody over the line. Whenever you assert your humanity or equality, um, somebody has a problem with it. Um, but if you mean to have your humanity or equality, then you have to be willing to put up with whatever the backlash is going to be, because backlash there will definitely be. So
Well, she definitely wasn't worried that day.
yeah,
That's for sure.
yeah,
Once again, I say she's very courageous. And wow, we need more of
yeah,
that in 2014.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, you want to move on, Georgia?
Okay. Who'd like to read the second?
I'll read it.
Okay.
The Citizens Coordinating Committee was formed in protest, led by Joanne Robinson, Rufus Lewis, and Fred Gray, demanding Colvin's unconditional acquittal. They discussed the risk of boycotting the buses, but decided to appeal to the city and bus officials directly, and if that failed, go to court. Their first meeting with the police commissioner and bus company manager resulted in a seating scheme based on a plan they had in Mobile, Alabama, where there was no firm color line. That meeting failed. The second meeting with the mayor and the city attorneys ended in a stalemate. And so your question was, Black leaders in Montgomery embraced the politics of respectability to combat the backlash of white supremacy. Do you feel this is a current strategy or pitfall still used by our leaders today?
Well, I think that it is a current strategy and pitfall of not just our leaders, but within the Black community. In this chapter, I learned that there were two women up to really represent the boycott, but they weren't, clean enough. The media could dig up stuff about them. Claudette had gotten pregnant, and I think the other girl, Mary, I think her name was, an alcoholic, and she was dark skinned, and they needed this prim and proper woman to represent boycott, so that no matter what happened, media can do anything. And I think that Black people, we definitely still do that to each other. And I think it's incredibly sad, because we keep separating. I don't know, I think it adds division. There's a difference between having an opinion and standing by it, but when you hierarchy who's important based off their social status or sexual preference or color, how Black are they? I think that divides us, and I don't know. I think it really stifles our growth as a community.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mhm. Georgette? Anybody?
Well, I'd like.
Anita?
I actually heard very little of Brandy's comment. I'm not sure if something wrong with her is going on, but I heard, just word, every other word of that.
Hmm.
Can we
Uh,
Georgia?
Like
I
now, I
heard
didn't.
Randy. I heard Randy pretty well, actually.
You did? I didn't hear hardly anything. Just now, when she spoke, I just heard nothing, hardly at all.
Yeah. Do you have earphones on? No.
No, I don't.
Hmm.
But I hear you, everyone else clearly, except Brandy.
Okay. Well, do you want to take your own? What's your take on the politics of respectability?
I think the politics of respectability would be great if we had respectable politicians today.
Mhm.
So I see it as a pitfall. Um, so maybe then, before we had as much corruption and disrespect among ourselves, um, it was the way to go. But no, we don't have any respectable politicians. And yes, it
Mhm.
is going to be a pitfall because we're losing our credibility
Mhm.
because we don't have those respectable politicians. Um,
Mhm.
we have. I'm not sure if I guess I can call names, but we're not doing very well. That's all I can say with our politicians, and even some that went back as far as the civil right have fallen to corruption. So
Mhm.
right now, it really is a pitfall for us because every time
Mhm.
that happens, inadvertently, it affects everyone because we lose more and more and more of our credibility. It's a problem. So that
Yeah.
doesn't really apply today. It doesn't apply today. It has nothing to do with race, creed, whether light or dark, black, or whether you're gay or heterosexual. It has nothing to do with just we don't have uh, you know, those those type of citizens anymore. you know,
Mhm.
representing us.
Mhm.
Some are going to jail for drugs. Others are having promiscuous affairs. Some decide they want to go out and buy Michael Jackson uh, memorabilia. Right here. No, I'm just not trying to call any names because I don't, and not that I care about calling names. Believe me, I will call some names. But hearing can leave me alone, and believe it or not, I live in the probably at one time the number one most corrupt state in the nation, and it's a tiny place. But all our
Yeah.
mayors go to jail, all our governors go to jail. I mean, look, we
Yeah.
don't have anyone that's not in jail. So our house.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. That's the state of Connecticut. It's small. Now I think we're the second most corrupt, or third state in the country, and
Uh
that's among
huh.
all races, black and white. So
Yeah.
no one has any representation these days. No one has any credibility. It's a pitfall.
Yeah. 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 Georgette.
Oh, well, hmm. I think during that period they would spend so much time and effort trying to create the perfect black person, even though it didn't matter, how religious you were, how nice you were, nicely dressed, where you worked, if you were working, you were still subject to all the hate and vitriol and physical abuse that they could heap upon you if they wanted to. So,
Mhm.
and yet still to get public opinion on their side as they stepped out into this unknown territory of fighting um, the laws, and trying to prove them unjust and trying to win. They felt forced to be as politically correct as possible. So I think
Right.
that's, and I don't know how, I wonder how the young lady and the women felt who had been abused, and these were their cases, and they were being called out of their name, and with trumped up charges, how they felt when the case was always against them, they were called whores and sluts or whatever, and
Mhm.
they had no one to support them. And then when they were really trying to get the movement together, they wouldn't select these women and say, no, you can't be up here because you know you got baggage on you, or they can put some baggage on you. We need
Right.
somebody unimpeachable, and I guess you have to make that, like the women had been making sacrifices for all those years, sacrificing on the bus, being abused, sacrificing walking down the street, the chance of being abused, and still speaking out about it, and trying to take a stand. Here's another sacrifice they have to make, you
Mhm.
know, for the greater good of everyone.
Mhm.
And, going back to what you said about the respectability, the politics of respectability, they come out and the butter won't melt in their mouths and they promise you everything, but you look, behind that closet that they have, and you'll see all sorts of things. And sooner or later, it's coming out in the news.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
If I may say something, the sad part about it is that you don't have to look. Every years ago, and although people would argue the fact whether it was right or wrong, at least you had to, if you weren't a virgin and you didn't have any children, well, you could pretend you was one until you're 80. If you did something behind your closed doors, and it stayed behind your closed doors, that's where it stayed. But now you don't have to dig for anything. It's just right out there, you
Yeah.
know. So you remember that how black mothers would say, "What goes on in this house stays in this house."
Yeah.
Well, that's not the way it is anymore. What goes on in this house is everybody's business because you put your business out there. So I
Right.
mean, we're really in a very bad way. There's nothing, and what's really ironic about it is that it seems to be society has decided it's okay.
Mhm.
You know, you can you can totally destroy folks' lives, and it's okay. You can go out and be a politician, do a little crap, keep a low profile, come back and run for governor again. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So it just,
Yeah. But Benita, that my understanding is that there has always been significant difference in how Americans view the personal lives of their politicians compared to, our Western European counterparts. Um, and so, certainly back in the 1940s, when all of this was going on, um, America in general was, I mean, we're reading about all the dirt, the grab, going out looking for little black girls, and all um, the things that were actually going on. But overall in society, there was this, I guess, attitude of politics of respectability, even among white folks, which was, um, I guess, why you could almost shame them into um, living up to some of their ideals, like we talked about last week, and the black soldiers being able to say, well, we're out fighting for democracy because we say this is what we're about, but yet we've got this contradiction going on at home. And so, so people have to actually care, or give you know, give a care in order for the politics of respectability to have any influence over them. So I don't know. I'm rambling, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, should it matter what the personal lives of our politicians are like, black or white? Because, and you guys know I'm a preacher's kid, and so for me, it's always been clear that people have these images, about what public figures should be like, and the images never match the true reality of their lives. And so I think what we're seeing now, it's ugly in a lot of cases, but I think what we're seeing now is the reality of who people are. And so, we can make a decision that if we want to elect a crack addict, then we know what we're doing. Would you rather do that knowing what you're doing, or pretend that he's not?
Good point.
Huh?
I said that's a good point. We love illusion, though.
Right.
Well, no, I want the truth because I live in the truth. However, I don't know how productive you can be representing me and others if you're a crack addict, although I may know it. Maybe I'm just not up with 2014 way of doing politics. I'm not saying not to be yourself, because Michelle, if anybody is themselves, it's me. Yeah, I am a very open person. Yeah. However, I think that and we have people that are young, like Randy. Randy's a young woman, and she's learning a lot. And isn't there a thing called set example anymore? Or do we not need those either?
Well, if Randy were to tell me that she was a crack addict, I would not be voting her into Congress.
but this is what's happening, though.
Yeah.
Which tells us something wrong with not the politicians. Nothing wrong with them. They're up front. You're right. There's something wrong with the folks that are voting for these folks. How can you knock them? There's nothing wrong with them at all. It's the folks that are voting for them. And once again, it doesn't make a difference.
It's the same kind of situation with churches where, you have these ministers that, they've got babies by several different women running around the congregation. They're out screwing little boys, doing whatever it is they want to do. And yet people come back to church on Sunday morning.
Well, there's only one Reverend Odom. There was only one Reverend Odom. And I knew the man. Okay, so we're not going to get to the minister thing because we know what that's about. But as I said, there's one Reverend Odom, and unfortunately, he's not here with us today. Okay, but it's the truth, though. Any way you look at it, it's just, what happened? I don't know what. Something's terribly wrong. Maybe it's me. Maybe everybody else is fine. Stop laughing when you get the truth, girl. Okay, no, Georgia.
And I say this all the time. A lot of things have really happened to our ability to be stand-up, respectable kinds of citizens. Substandard education, we've been hit. The influx of drugs into our community, the preponderance of legal prescription drugs that people are on, the poor quality of the food that we're eating and the air that we're breathing. We have been hit. We are not the same people that we used to be. And we can't even pretend like we are.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm very afraid.
Yeah.
I'm very, very afraid.
Yeah, you should be.
And I am.
You should be. Randy, did we hear from you?
Yeah, I answered. I was the first one who answered the question.
Okay. Well, what else do you have to say about it?
I'm with Vanita. Maybe it's me. Sometimes that's why I laugh because I was just thinking that last night. I don't know. I think that there has been a major shift. I think that just from me reading history and my grandparents, my big mama, I think there's been a major shift in thinking. I think that a lot of people try to use Obama as a example of post-racial, you know, like anxiety and that racism doesn't exist. And I think that I don't know. Times to me are starting to mirror a lot of the history I've read, and it's scary. It is.
Hmm.
Um, and I just from just reading about these women and how they spoke and how they stood up, how they irritated a few people and and were scared that I'm just gonna keep speaking and keep acknowledging and keep reading and learning because I think right now that's the only form of resistance that I feel powerful with. Nobody's marching as much. Nobody's boycotting half the things we need to be boycotting. And the only thing we really have right now are these books and these memories and these
Hmm.
speeches and these women. So that's what I'm leaning on right now for hope.
Hmm. 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 Yeah, I say all the time we need a 500-year plan. Because that's the only way I can keep hope alive for myself. Because when you think about the complexity and the just overwhelming amount of problems that we have, um, I mean, it's easy to get turned off and decide not to do anything because it's too much. But when I think of it as a 500-year plan, and really, and really, when I think about our world and I think about our problems, I think about it more from a human perspective than a black person's perspective. Um, because I think our problems are just so connected, and that we can't solve one without without it having some impact on the other. So I mean, if we really went way back in history, um, certainly to the days of the Bible, but however old man may actually be, um, human nature. We just we got a lot of issues, and we keep going around in circles and circles and circles because I think we're not taking the time ever to stop and analyze and set out on a course of doing things differently, of raising our children differently, of consciously trying to create a new world. So um, we don't have a 500-year plan that I know of, but but I think that if we thought of it in that kind of um, in those kinds of terms, that it's taken us a long time to get to the sort of devastating point that we're at. We're really talking about the end of the world. This is basically where we are, and we didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to get out of here overnight. So I don't think you should be hopeless, Randy. I don't think anybody should be hopeless, but I don't think we should be feeling the burden of, or feeling the personal responsibility of, having to try to solve all of the world's problems on our own or in our own lifetime, because they're much bigger than that. So I'm sorry, I don't like to speechify.
That's okay. You sounded great. That was great points there.
So I don't know. I guess maybe we've lost Labib, because we'll be through this by the time he makes his way back. So I think we should move on.
Okay. All right, then I'll read which one are on, number 3? I believe we're on number 3.
Number 3, yeah.
On December 1st, 1955, when Rosa Parks sat in that seat in the no man's land, she faced her old enemy, bus driver James F. Blake. She was afraid, but determined to see it through. She knew that the more we give in and comply, the worse they treated us. Drawing on the spirit and example of her grandfather and her experience at the Training Center for Labor and Civil Rights Activists, she was able to sit in pride and dignity in the face of physical danger. Okay. And then the question I have for that is, the strategy of using Rosa Parks as a plaintiff who was beyond reproach reflects the power of public opinion throughout the civil rights era. How could this perfect change agent strategy be used today, and would it be effective?
Well, I have to concur with Vanita. We don't. I'd say we don't have any perfect leaders, but we don't have any perfect followers either. So I don't know that particular strategy could work in today's context. I'm thinking about the reaction that people had to the murder of Trayvon Martin. Mm-hmm. And he probably comes as close to something we could hold up as perfect to try to galvanize attention. And even in his case, white folks tried to smear his image and and create the counter narrative that he was far from perfect. But there was something about that case, and again, I think like with Claudette Colvin and Rosa Parks, we were just at a point. Black folks are being killed left and right. You know, we really um, we really are backpedaling, it seems. Um, you know, in terms of our ability to feel safe walking down the street or knocking on somebody's door for directions. You know, you take your life in your hands. So as a sleep, you know, as I said before in my little tirade, we've been hit. We've been through a lot, um, and we're asleep in a lot of ways. Um, but there's still something about a case like Trayvon that could touch something in people, um, that would have them willing to take to the streets. I don't know about take to the streets for 381 days straight, like they did with the Montgomery bus boycott. Um, you know, because the real work of change is, oh, Labib is back.
I'm back on the block. How are you?
Good, we're still here.
Okay.
I was just saying.
How's everybody?
All right.
We're all right. We're all right. We are on point number 3 and question number 3.
Okay.
From Georgette's notes. So yeah, I mean, I'll wrap up my point. That was basically it. That even though you think we're asleep, you think we're dead. You know, I think there are still things that can touch us, like Trayvon Martin.
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
We had an incident in my state. I think it was day before yesterday, maybe even yesterday. There was a babysitter. There was babysitting his child in a home in one of our little quaint towns here. The little girl is about 4 years old, maybe about 4. Very smart little, bright little girl. She happened to be Caucasian. And she had a babysitter that happened to be Caucasian. What's been happening in 1955 and 1939 happened yesterday here. Nothing has changed.
Mm-hmm.
What happened, to make a long story short, is the babysitter, a little Caucasian young woman, made a story that someone had came in, held them there for 3 hours, and relieved them of their material goods, like their televisions, PlayStations, laptops, you name it, money, jewelry, so on and so forth. What this white babysitter went on to say is, you know, when the police questioned her, she said, well, it was a black man that did this. This is a very good story. So the little girl, when the police questioned, actually before then, she said, and she described this person and how they looked. You know, all black men look alike, so they said anyway, so it didn't make a difference. They went across the street, they're literally almost across the street to a neighbor's house, which happened to be a black man, a very intelligent black man. I think his wife might have been, she was Latino, but I'm not quite sure. You know, whether she was, you know, from Puerto Rico or Mexico. They had an infant, probably about 5 months old. They went across the street to this man's home, held him up in this house, questioned him for 3 hours. It was a little girl, when they showed him a mug shot. Actually, I think they actually, and please don't quote me, I think they actually came to the police station. They came back to the little girl, showed the mug shot. The little girl said, is this the man? And she said, no. It wasn't a black man. It was a white man like me. So they went back, mind you, to question the babysitter again. Her story started to fall apart really quickly. Come to find out, she had set it up with her friends to rob their house, to come in their house, and I don't know what she thought. Maybe the 4-year-old, little 3 and 4-year-olds are very bright these days. They're super smart. Okay, Whether she was just non-existent and wasn't there, or she been tied for 3 hours and didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
So the story fell apart. They had the gentleman, actually the news, the black gentleman, and he was, he said, well, he was committing a little girl, number one, and number two, he's glad that they actually caught the babysitter in her story. However, he went on to say, well, the babysitter didn't understand the danger that she put me in. So no, we haven't come anywhere. I don't understand what were other people are in, but this was yesterday or day before yesterday in Connecticut, and Connecticut is that big. So it's probably a couple towns over. I don't remember the specific town, but this is still going on today. Just if a white person says it was a black person, it doesn't make a difference. Automatically, it's just like, it's you. Just on her word.
Yeah.
Her word alone. And she put that black man in all kinds of danger.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
let's bring Labib into the conversation. Labib, first of all, how do you pronounce your name, and tell us where you're from and stuff.
Okay, well, the pronunciation of my name, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, the pronunciation of my name is correct, Labib Hamid. Okay, and I'm from the New York area. I grew up in Syracuse, New York. I currently live downstate in New York, in Long Island, New York, which you would
get. We're neighbors.
Okay, very good. Let me make this commentary. First, we have to deal with the reality of the criminalization of our people. Now, this is something that has been going on for a few centuries, as we have been, kidnapped and brought into the institution of slavery here in America. It was necessary to animalize us, as some authors have termed. This was to reduce our humanity to the level of an animal, and thereby justify the maltreatment of us as a people. Now, part of that maltreatment had to do with utilizing fear and barbarism to displace the natural relationship between black women and black men, black men being the protectors and the providers of black women, to replace that relationship with an artificial relationship, using the tactic of fear and savagery to the point of torture and or murder. So once this process was instituted and effectively achieved its goal, as is noted in the Willie Lynch letters, it was a deliberate process. Okay. Once this process of animalization took place, then the system of slavery, being able to use black people, was effective. Later on, after 200 plus years of chattel slavery ended, black folks, if you notice, were not welcomed into American mainstream society and lifestyle. We were still marginalized. And so then there came a time in this process, you call it the Jim Crow process, the rise of the Ku Klux Klan, so on and so forth. You had to now move into the criminalization of blacks. And as was noted in your last meeting, the author talked about how a black man could be lynched, what they called, what white people called, I don't know, visual rape or something like that.
Eye rape.
Eye rape. Just looking at a white woman, okay, black man could lose his life. So what the sister just mentioned about here in 2014 in Connecticut, a white woman accusing a black man of a crime and how easily the police took to that and caused all kinds of problems for this black man that could have been worse problems if it were not for the honesty of the little white girl. Okay. In fact, if the babysitter was smart, she could have told the police, "You cannot question this child without the presence and consent of her parents and or a lawyer."
And there would have been another lynching.
Exactly. Okay, so because of the criminalization of the black man and the black woman, that still goes on to this day, the media highlights the criminality of black folk, or criminal activity, if you will, of black people, highlights that. The ongoing opinion of black people is that the ongoing opinion of black people is pejorative. It's negative. It's not positive. We're lazy. We want to engage in negative and unproductive activity and so on and so forth. We don't want to get an education, blah, blah, blah. So it's there. The negative imagery is there. The criminalization is there. So the atmosphere is set for the use of force against black people, deadly force in several instances. And that the perpetrators, whether they be a man in uniform or a George Zimmerman, the perpetrators of this violence against black people, they get away with it 9 times out of 10 because our image in the public eye is criminalized. So we went from
we're not doing ourselves any favor either. I'm hearing today that Nigeria has dropped the search for the nearly 300 girls that went missing to Boko Haram.
Yes.
I think Randy, how are you in there twice?
Yes.
I don't know.
I guess I would ask, has the oppressor succeeded?
Yeah.
But
that's a very good point, Michelle. I do believe that a large portion of our population has capitulated to this idea that we are inferior and whites are superior, and so this animalization, this criminalization of black folks, that process has been completed such that we have inculcated into our thinking that we are inferior.
Amen.
Yeah,
so
one of the
yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
One of the great lines from this chapter is when the young lady at the beginning said, "I am just as good as any white person."
Yes.
I think our goals need to be higher than that.
Yes.
But but let's move on because we still have quite a few questions we haven't gotten to.
Okay.
Georgette, where do you want to take us? Thanks, Labib.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right, we're at P.4. After the arrest of Rosa Parks, Joanne Robinson didn't wait for the approval of Edie Nixon. She and the Women's Political Council launched the bus boycott, complete with flyers promoting it as an effort to protect black womanhood.
What's our question?
And so the question is, today we hear much about economic disparity among men and women. However, the gap between the earning of black and white women is great as well. White women have enjoyed the benefits of the Civil Rights Bill, smashing through glass ceilings and reaching professional and personal success. But there is still a bus today. It's an economic one. How can African American women move to the front of the bus today?
Oh, I want to I want to answer that first.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Today, we hear much about economic disparity among men and women. However, the gap between the earnings of Black and white women is great as well. White women have enjoyed the benefits of the Civil Rights Bill, smashing through glass ceilings and reaching professional and personal success. But there is still a bus today. It's an economic one. How can African American women move to the front of the bus today?
Okay, very good question. Thank you.
Well, for me, I guess I'm sitting here. I'm thinking about one of the lessons that my parents used to teach about being the best. No matter what you did. If we mopped the floor and it didn't look right, they have you go back and do it again.
Correct.
So I think there are really two approaches to this question. One, I mean, I think I know the answer, but I think one is we need to seriously be trying to figure out how we feel about the capitalistic system.
Okay.
And do we want to be a part of it, and does it work for us? We're in this book focused on the 40s and 50s, where I think the consensus was, well, no, there all was division in the community, but there was a part of the community that was moving toward integration and moving toward being a part of the American capitalistic structure. Um, I think we have some experience in it. Personally, I think we should have always been assessing um, how we were faring in that process, and deciding whether or not it's working for us. I don't think it's working for many of us very well. We have our Oprahs, we have our success stories, but I think for the mass of Black people, um, the system has not been good to us. However, if we're not going to foment revolution and change it, then how do we be the best? How do we participate in the system and do it well? And if that's the case, then I think that we have to seriously take our own entrepreneurial development. We have to take that path seriously. And we've done it before, and we've done it well, and we're traumatized because so much of that has been destroyed in the blink of an eye by white folks. And so I understand. But one of the things Rosa Parks said in this chapter that I loved was, she had decided a long time ago she was never going to be going to any meeting with a piece of paper in her hand asking white folks to do nothing. And I think that's the right approach, really. And I think that's the right approach economically, that we've got to figure out how to create our own sub-economy, not the illegal kind that gets us
jail time.
Yes, but providing the whole plethora of services that we need as human beings. So that's my answer, Georgette.
Okay, may I come in?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. and I don't mean to be male dominating, so please don't take it that way.
Oh, we won't allow that.
I figured.
Don't worry about it.
There you go. Okay, well, let me just say this briefly. To follow up on what Michelle has said, I think very good points. One, we have to recognize as we operate within the system that there is a pecking order. The white man is first. The white woman is second. The black man is third, and the black woman is fourth. Or our places are interchangeable. Truth be told, in this pecking order of things. That's one. Number two, which is really number one, is that we have to, as a people, individually and collectively, hold ourselves to a higher standard of acquiring an education that makes us an independent people as opposed to a dependent people. Okay, knowledge is universal. It is not just designated for one set or race of people. It is for all people, and we all can acquire a high degree of education, whether it is through traditional channels, attending the public school, private school, whatever the case may be, or going to the library. Nowadays, we have the internet. So we have many different avenues today to seek out knowledge and skill on a high level, and we can seek out the knowledge on various different subjects or career paths. So what we want to do is we want to equip ourselves with a high level of education and a high level of capability that goes along with a high level of drive and self-motivation towards excellence. Then we want to partner with like-minded people, so that when we can form groups, organizations, we can form businesses, services, and so on and so forth. In the tradition of, as Michelle had mentioned, really, in the tradition of our foremothers and fathers. You mentioned, Rosa Parks in this particular case, and others. Mary McLeod Bethune, I had read some years ago that she started Bethune-Cookman College by selling sweet potato pies. She had that skill to make them, and she had the enterprise or the entrepreneurial spirit where she used those proceeds to purchase some land. It so happened to be a garbage dump, so she got it for next to nothing, you see. But she had a vision, and the vision was to form a college that would assist black folk in acquiring an education, a higher level of education that wasn't necessarily available to them at that time. You see, this was pre-integration, if you will, or pre-civil rights movement, if you will. So you and I were still being banned from many different colleges and universities. So this is what she did. So acting in that tradition, and we have glorious examples amongst our people, men and women, our women in particular, of how we can be creative in surviving, and not only surviving but moving forward.
I make a mean carrot cake, if I must say so myself.
Here we go.
Benita, I know you had something to say.
She's still on mute.
Are you on mute? Benita, are you on mute?
No, I'm unmuted. Khalib, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Labib.
Labib?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I did write that down. I've sat back and I've watched a lot of things happen. I think basically what happened to black folk is the 80s.
True.
That's what happened to black folk, was the 80s.
You're right.
When white folks told them that, oh, now you can move in the suburbs, and now You can buy a car. And now, thanks to the hard work of the black woman, the black men can have a white woman.
Mm.
And now you can do all this other happy stuff. So at that point, we got very comfortable. We got very, very comfortable with ourselves. I saw it all around me.
Yes.
You know, times were good. You thought you had a couple of dollars. No one told you, and that wasn't the plan anyway, to tell you that things change constantly, and what you have today is nothing tomorrow.
That's correct.
That's what happened to black folks. Then you started to get the images on television. You know, and everyone started, you know, when we said be individual, we meant to think creatively individual.
Yes.
We did not mean to divide ourselves. So we divided ourselves also social economically.
True.
So I just don't know. I truly believe that during that time, black folks have done more damage to themselves than a white man can ever do. So I think we need to start taking a whole bunch of responsibility.
Yes.
I mean, racism is that much of it, but we have done more damage to ourselves than any white person, dead or alive, could ever do to us. Because we decided that we were going to emulate Caucasians.
Yes.
We decided that we were going to, we make $50,000 a year, but we can buy a home that costs $400,000 a year. Now, I know Einstein, don't pretend to be, but there's a thing called simple math.
Mm-hmm.
And then we turn around and we'll take responsibility for our behavior.
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry. The banks has held a magnum to our heads and made us buy this home with 85% interest rate on $40,000 a year. So I just think that unless we start living in the truth, nothing's going to happen. And I blame very little on the white man at this point.
Yes.
In spite of everything else that's going on,
Yes.
I blame very little at this point. We lost ourselves because we actually, for some ungodly reason, I say it as a whole, start to emulate their behaviors. What we forgot, though, is that they will land on their feet regardless, and we don't.
Right. We didn't have the foundation.
Correct.
We didn't
And they
have
managed
the.
And they
Yeah.
managed to divide us. They managed once again to help divide us by social economics.
Yeah.
And then you had, you know, all the other things that's going on. If you turn it, I don't even watch television. You know, I'm really embarrassed. We have all the reality shows on television. I don't know people like that.
Well, we're creating our own entertainment content right here. Let's hear from our young person, Randy. Randy, can you hear me?
Yes, you froze up for a second.
Okay.
Did you ask me something?
Yeah. Did you have something to say about question 4?
Well, I think Levine, I think part of his answer dealt with education, and Vanita, part of her answer dealt with personal accountability, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do believe that education is the highest form of resistance against white supremacy, against internalized racism. I think that it is key. I really do believe it. It's a shame that a lot of black people can't afford to go to school. What people don't want us to know, there are so many scholarships out there for everybody, and we don't apply for them because we don't think that we can go. And I know a lot of people I grew up with didn't believe that they were worthy of going to school, or that it would do anything for them. And I think that is something that we have been taught to believe, and I just don't think it's true. In terms of personal accountability, I've mentioned this to Michelle before, but I did my senior project for college on internalized racism. I looked at how the late 1800s to 1930s and the lynchings that took place during that period, and how those lynchings provoked internalized racism in Black Americans. I think that at the root of our problem is that Black people have started to internalize a lot of the messages that we have been that has been like spewed at us from that time period of extreme lynching, which lynchings to me were, as I argue, were a blatant example of rejection. They, you couldn't touch white women. They were forbidden fruit. Can a Black man really be a man if he can't be with a white woman? All of this wrapped up in it, and of course the rapings of Black women that were going uncontested and unindicted. And I think that we've over time have internalized there's no reason in voting, there's no point in speaking up, my skin is too dark, because those are messages that we have been fed. And when you are traumatized, you know what goes first: physical, emotional, mental. People want to forget. People don't want to talk about it. And like Michelle said earlier, when you find yourself asserting your humanity, you realize that people are turned off because we don't do that anymore. And I think that internalized racism and lack of education is a big part of why Black people, or why we are who we are. And Black people, like you mentioned earlier, I think Winnie, you said as well. And another question, we were always taught, whatever happens in this house stays in this house. That doesn't just include mom and daddy fighting. That's incest. That's sexual assault. That's domestic violence. That's an alcoholic parent. And Black people, majority don't believe in psychology, don't believe in going to see a therapist. So we got all this mental trauma and emotional trauma that we're holding on to, and nobody's talking about it and healing from it. And so you got all of that piled up on top of the fact that we really haven't. It's gotten better, but I think that it stayed the same. I think a lot of things, it looks different, but it's the same thing. We don't just have racism anymore. We have institutionalized racism. We have racism on Ivy League campuses and private schools. And I think all of that combined is why we are struggling. I try to stay away from blaming Black people because I have to step back and recognize at one point I was broken and very uneducated and did not love myself and had internalized images of whiteness that I thought were right. And that does affect the mind, and that does affect who you are as a person, who you are as a person to your people. And a lot of people, I don't think a lot of Black people have really sat down and thought about that or want to.
Very, very good points. I didn't catch your name.
Randy.
Randy. How you doing, Randy? Very good points. I recently heard Toni Morrison, a clip from Toni Morrison talking with Charlie Rose on the Charlie Rose program. He asked her about racism, and she pulled what I call a James Baldwin on the questioner. And what she did was beautiful. She said that racism, is not a Black person's problem because it is not a Black person's invention. It is a white person's problem because it is a white person's invention. So white folks need to start asking themselves, what purpose does racism or white supremacy serve you? And how would you be as a human being without racism, without the institution of racism, without the institution of white supremacy? Would you be a kind person? Would you be a respectful person? Would you be an intelligent person? Would you be a good human being? So that's the question that has to be posed to white folks, and white folks have to delve within themselves and be real with themselves. As Black people on the receiving end of racism, we're not the victims.
And that is just what is so hard for them to do. Let me just say, it is 8 o'clock now. I'm willing to go another 10 or 15 minutes if you all are, because we did start late tonight. How does everybody feel about that?
That's fine.
I'll hang out.
Okay. So, Labib, as you were telling that story about Toni Morrison, I was thinking about a post I posted. I do a lot, not all of it, but I do a lot of the social media for Black Women's Blueprint. So I posted the same picture I had posted on my personal Facebook wall, which is of a large black woman with her breast out, nursing a white baby, and another black woman holding a little white baby, and it sparked a lot of conversation on the Black Women's Blueprint Facebook page, especially after a white person showed up to try to say to us, what's your point in showing this? It was one of those obstinate, ignorant type white folk that you just couldn't reason with no matter what. But so often that is the case, rather than looking at the reality of our history. People are trying so hard to protect themselves. Something yesterday, a quote by Betty Shabazz that says, most people can't deal with reality, something like that. But it's true. It's true. And that's whether you're black or white. Most people are not trying to look at the gruesomeness of our history or our current situation. I mean, people in the Facebook,
correct.
People in the Facebook group were trying to make the point to this white person that, look, we got people on Park Avenue nursing little white babies. Wait, you talking about history? True. We're talking about, just like Vanita said about Connecticut, we're talking about what happened today.
Yes.
But they don't want to look at it because it means risking their own privilege. And that's what it comes down to.
Correct.
Georgette, we haven't heard from. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You quite touched it all. Very powerful statements.
Yeah.
Just a second, if you don't mind. Randy, I don't want you to think by any means when I made the statement that you have to have self-respect. I did not, and I don't want you to. I have 2 children, my sons myself, which are adult sons. But I don't want you to think that for a minute I was saying, let's keep anything in the closet. The problem is with black folk, we keep too much in the closet. However, you know what I'm saying? I don't want you to think that that's what I was actually saying, because by no means, we have a lot of issues. And that's the problem, is that we don't live in the truth. When I take responsibility, I don't want you to think I don't also want you to think I'm blaming us. However, you got to clean your own backyard up first.
That's correct.
That's what I'm saying. I cannot honestly sit here with 2 black educated sons that my husband worked tirelessly, and I stayed home for 20-something years to raise, to be the men they are today, and say that a white man stopped me. He didn't. He didn't stop me. He didn't stop me from making sure that my children, the school system, gave them what they needed so that they'd be prepared for higher education. He didn't stop me from doing that. Right. He didn't stop me from seeking out the information I need to be the best mother. And my husband, yes, surprisingly, there are some 2-family black homes left in America, like a whole lot. He didn't stop me from doing that.
Well,
that's what I mean. Personal responsibility. You got to clean up your own backyard first before you can start looking out there at other folks and what injustices you feel they're doing to you. I mean, you can't.
Vanita and I have this argument kind of all the time, and I would just say to that, Vanita's highly intelligent and resourceful person, and she sometimes loses sight of the fact that not everyone is. And that's not to say she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. She wasn't. But she was born with a higher than average level of intelligence and resourcefulness. And we have to remember that people are individuals. They come with individual gifts and burdens, and they cope differently with the reality of their circumstances. And so where one person may be able to pull themselves up by bootstraps that they do not have, someone else will not be able to take on that fight. So I think we have to leave room for compassion.
And I do leave room for compassion, but I don't like to have a pocket full of excuses. You know what I'm saying? We all can contribute something.
Let me back up, Anita, for a minute, and say this, that she's right, because at the end of the day, what do we want and what do we need in terms of our survival is that we need success. We need a successful accomplishment of our ultimate goal. One is to have life tomorrow and to have a quality of life tomorrow. So whether anybody else cooperates with us in this goal, we have to take the onus on ourselves to make sure that we do any and everything that is necessary to accomplish that goal, the survival of our people and a quality existence into tomorrow. So in that regard, we have to be leaders. And what are leaders? What's the mindset of a leader? Leader says, look, the buck stops here. We fail, it's on my head. We succeed, it's on our head. That's the mindset of a leader. So I agree with Anita. We kind of have to narrow down or pare down our legitimate excuses. We have to. It's an onus that we have to bear. The Chinese are not going to come.
I agree with that. Okay, it is now. I think rather than taking on another question, Georgette, we should try to figure out who is going to moderate next week's session. Vanita, are you ready?
No, I told you I got a lot to do. I'm just barely trying to get these chapters read. Hi, Randy. I see you smiling.
And I thought I was not moved by that.
And this is a legitimate excuse. Okay? You heard me throw that in there?
I heard you.
That my plate is kind of full right now, and I don't want to say yes to something and not do it, because I don't do it that way, Michelle.
I know.
But Levine, he's probably take on, right?
Ladies, I appreciate the invitation, and I'm not trying to cop out. I'd be kind of limited. One, like Anita, in terms of preparedness to take on that role, and then number two, I kind of like to talk.
We've noticed.
Number three, you're taking us all out to dinner, cyberspace.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
All right, Randy. I think it's your turn.
Okay, I will do chapter 4.
See, this is why I love this woman. Chapter 4 is Randy. All right, yeah. Okay, any final thoughts from our talkative crew?
May I just say this? One, thank you for the invitation to this group. Number two, I have great respect for the women in this group. The work that you do outside of the group and within the group to provide success for the group. And all the best. You're doing a good thing. I encourage you to continue, whether I myself continue with you or not. But you're doing a very good thing. Keep up the good work, and I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you. Well, do you plan to continue with us?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Yes. All right.
All right, Georgette. Thank you so much for tonight's work.
Thank you, Georgette.
You're very welcome. And thank you all for your wonderful commentary. Every time you say something, I just makes me have a million other questions.
I know you could barely get in the conversation tonight.
But that's okay. That's okay. You did a great job. I love it.
Oh, well, I'm not going to be so chatty next time. All right.
Always been long-winded since 12.
But
it's a very good long wind. It's a very good long wind. That's it.
All right. Well, everybody have a good week. I'll see you later.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Bye, Randy.
Bye.
Bye, Lee. Bye, bye.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.
All right.
Yeah.